Welcome back. You're watching live from Paris on France 24, and it's time now for Focus. Well, time is running out. In the United States, a very bitter battle is being waged over the economy, and if Republicans and Democrats fail to agree to lift the debt ceiling within 6 days, then the world's biggest economy could default on its debts. Well, experts are warning that that could have a catastrophic impact on the American, but also the global economy. And it's turned into something of a battle of wills between the President and the Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner. Well, more from tonight's guest in a moment. First, though, this report on the story so far.
The deadlock continues. Despite lengthy negotiations, Democrats and Republicans in the US still haven't managed to agree on whether or not to raise Washington's debt ceiling, and the clock is ticking. If they still haven't found a solution by Tuesday, the US will default on its loans. It's a situation that Barack Obama knows he must avoid at all costs. On Monday, he addressed the nation, calling on voters to put pressure on the people they elected.
Good evening. If you want a balanced approach to reducing the deficit, let your member of Congress know. I've told leaders of both parties that they must come up with a fair compromise in the next few days that can pass both houses of Congress, and a compromise that I can sign. I'm confident we can reach this compromise.
But with just 7 days to go until the deadline, Republicans are sticking to their guns as hard as ever.
The House will be in order. I want you to know I made a sincere effort to work with the President to identify a path forward that would implement the principles of cut, cap, and balance in a manner that could secure bipartisan support. And the sad truth is that the President wanted a blank check 6 months ago, and he wants a blank check today. This is just not going to happen.
Both Democrat and Republican camps are blaming the other side for not coming to a compromise. Neither party wants to give an inch in this battle of wills, for fear it'll make them look weak, just as the 2012 presidential elections come on the horizon.
The Great Depression was World War II.
Voters know what's really behind this game of tug-of-war, and they'll be the first ones to be affected if Washington can't find more cash. Their frustration was clear in a poll carried out by the Washington Post newspaper and ABC News Channel. A third of people think the country's economic situation has got worse since Obama entered the White House. Yet 48% think he's the best person to lead them out of the crisis, compared to 39% for the Republicans. If the two sides can't reach a deal before the looming deadline, it'll most likely be the Republicans who suffer the wrath of the public.
Well, let's get the view of tonight's guest. Ali Fatimi is a professor of finance at the American Graduate School of Economics here in Paris. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Now, watching those clips there of John Boehner and President Obama, you'd be forgiven for thinking this is more about politics than it is about economics.
It's absolutely. I think it's a chicken game. Who's going to blink first? And there won't be a default. I mean, I can make that prediction. However, if there is one, this is going to have a large and negative effect, as the IMF said, on the whole world economy. They will reach an agreement because neither side can afford to be blamed for responsible.
But who's going to back down? It just seems as though they're further than ever from compromise, and we've got 6 days to go. It's hard to see who's going to give. Where do you see the leeway there?
Well, first of all, it's not as critical as everybody makes it sound. Even if they reach an agreement on the 2nd of August, there's still time because Treasury has the money. The question is, the Republicans want to make sure. I don't think Mr. Boehner has the votes. There are about 30 to 40 Tea Partiers in the House of Representatives that he cannot carry. Mr. Obama cannot go much further because he has the left wing of the Democratic Party. So when he says a balanced view, Republicans read more tax, more spending. I think what they will eventually do is to push the whole thing for another year after the election. They will come up with a stopgap measure similar to the one that the House and the Senate both have those bills. The last minute, the rabbit comes out. And I think they will avoid it. But this is just a game for the next year's election.
Now, all of this is having a damaging effect already. We've seen a poll of economists out today, and the majority of them say, look, we don't think the US deserves or will keep its AAA rating. What kind of impact will that have?
Absolutely. All three major rating agencies have said, if they don't agree, they are going to lower the AAA ratings of the U.S. This is the first time that this is going to happen, and that will be an earthquake in financial markets.
And what would happen in terms of an earthquake?
Well, basically what will happen is the stock market, bond market, they will all collapse. The investment will cease. Most people will be worried to go ahead and invest. And the repercussions will be totally irrational. U.S. has an 11% of the GDP deficit. That cannot be supported for long. However, a measure like this will be much more symbolic. The main effect will be psychological.
Do you think anyone could benefit from a US default? For example, China?
I don't think so, because China today is in the game. Whatever happens to the world economy will have repercussions for China. And let's remember, China is the biggest holder of American debt. They're much more interested in American, because they want to trade those things. They're very much interested now in keeping Americans' credit up.
Isn't this rebalancing of global debt necessary, though? For example, China, as you say, holds a lot of US debt. When you've got a crisis like this going on, might that start to rebalance?
Well, no, the only solution to that is much higher rate of growth for the U.S. It's 2.5 now. The best estimate of IMF is next year 2.7. With that, you cannot bring the unemployment. It's over 9% now. If they're lucky, they bring it back to 8.5%. U.S. is used to 4 and 5% unemployment. U.S. must grow if it's going to balance its debt with China. You just can't do it with this kind of gimmicks.
Now, the IMF chief, Christine Lagarde, today hinted that the US shouldn't go ahead and cut spending too quickly, because that could actually make the problem worse. Do you think she's more on the side of the Democrats than the Republicans right now?
I don't think so. I don't think she's going to interfere in the US. She's smarter than that to interfere in local politics. But what she's saying makes a lot of economic sense. But on the other hand, if the US loses its ratings, not because of default, but because people just lose their confidence in the U.S. 14 trillion, more than 14 trillion and ticking is a lot. And if the U.S. loses its creditworthiness, then that would be just as great. So I think what we're going to end up with a solution to both of these. They will postpone the final decision, but they will not be a default. That's my bet.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. 6 days to go. Ali Fatimi, many thanks indeed.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll have all the latest headlines for you, including the latest from Norway, as officials release the identities of the 76 people killed by a gunman. We'll have the latest on that, plus analysis of the uprisings across the Arab world. Douglas Herbert speaks to Marina Ottaway from the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. That's in the interview. All of that up next.